But with respect to national security, and it's great to have General Sipe and others involved in this, there are a group of generals and admirals who've been out front on this for several years, warning of the consequences, because what happens is our national security and the potential of our troops being involved somewhere in the world is greatly enhanced, unfortunately, by climate change. Why? In the Sudan today, people are killing each other, fighting over water. Wells. Tribal rights to wells is a big deal in that part of the world. And when people have to move because of desertification, which is occurring at a faster rate, they fight over that water. Yesterday's front page of the New York Times, big story about Pakistan and India and the water tensions that are existing between them. In China, they are moving rapidly on this front, much more rapidly than we are, I might add, because they fear the disappearance of the Himalayan glaciers. And the Himalayan glaciers on both sides of the Himalayas feed India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Afghanistan, et cetera. And on the other side, China, the principal rivers, and they're afraid of what happens when 1.2 billion people are struggling for water in order to provide their food. You can run down long lists of things. We are predicted to have somewhere upwards of 200 million climate nomads who move from place to place because they are trying to survive. That will create instability. And when you add it to the religious extremism, opportunism, exploitation that takes place today already in very poor countries where they don't have education, they don't have jobs, as that nomadism and as those climate tensions grow, extremism will come in and somebody's going to be blamed for it, and it'll probably be the West. So bottom line quickly is, no country has ever survived as a powerful nation whose economy doesn't remain powerful. Our economy is going to continue to have difficulties unless we break out. China, India, Mexico, Brazil, Germany, many other countries have committed to alternative energy, renewable energy, energy efficiency, getting off of oil, all these things. We're not. We're behind, folks. And because we're behind, we're going to lose our opportunities with respect to job creation here in the United States. The jobs will be created elsewhere. We need to create those jobs here. So I'll give you the bottom line. We're fighting to get this legislation passed. But we have some colleagues who still are reluctant to support legislation because they think you're reluctant to support them if they do, because they fear the consequences of voting, and because some of the powerful interests that have always fought this are telling them, oh, the utility rates are going to go up, the costs are going to go up, and so forth. We've shown in our bill that they don't go up, that we create hundreds of thousand jobs every year for the next 20 years. In fact, we lower energy costs, and we need to take the fear out of this and empower our colleagues to go out and vote. That's what I'm asking you to do. That's what we need.
Senator Kerry, I want to show you something that we started with so you have an idea of who's in this room. How many of you come from outside of Washington? Raise your hand. Okay, so people are here from all over the country. And they're here because they're interested in this bill and they've signed on. You've heard their enthusiasm. What are the chances of this bill? Because what they're reading in the press is it ain't going to happen, and even the Democrats may see that.
The chances of this bill are very tough right now. And I'll tell you why they're tough. They're tough for the reasons I just described. Fear. You know, we have, I'll tell you who it is. Senator Dorgan met with the coal industry just the other day. There was a big article yesterday, I think in Politico, Roll Call, one of them. And it said, you know, ally, coal ally takes on industry. He told them, you guys better come in and negotiate. You're going to cut your own throats doing what you're doing now. Because coal is already in the corner, having a tough time. I would like those coal miners to be able to mine coal, providing we can burn it clean. In our bill, we provide $20 billion for clean coal technology. We provide over $100 billion over the course of the time to prove or give them an opportunity to be able to prove that they can go out and actually do that. Now, I don't know if you can do it or not, folks, but I can tell you this. The only future it will have, if it's going to have a future, is if it's clean. And the only way they're going to get the money to be able to do it is through this kind of legislation, because it isn't going to be appropriated. There's no money there with a deficit now to appropriate it. So what's happening is people are reacting out of fear and saying, no, 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 we can't vote for this, but they're actually going to wind up hurting the very people that they're trying to, quote, save, because there isn't going to be money there to create the jobs in the future and make this happen. We need you and others to convince people that voting for this is, in fact, politically helpful to them, that it's not going to raise the prices. You know, there isn't one study, this is what baffles me, not one analysis that is a legitimate analysis, and there have been many of them. McKinsey Company, the Conservation Law Foundation, Pew Foundation, University of California, Berkeley, run a list of them. There are over 35 of them. Every single one of them says this legislation will create 200,000 to 550,000 jobs a year for the next 20 years. Every study shows you'll reduce the cost of energy, and yet we're still hearing people say, oh, I can't vote for that. It's going to raise energy costs, or it's going to hurt my coal people, or whatever. What you're seeing is classic special interest resistance. And what we need is classic American grassroots proactive effort that proves to people they are not in sync with the American people. That's what we need.
So General Side, pick up on this for a minute, and you heard what the senator said about national security. When you're talking to your colleagues, when you're talking to Americans, if you were lobbying here on Capitol Hill, what would you be saying about, and I'll tie it right into a question asked by John Thornton, an Iraq vet from Nashua, New Hampshire, how this energy and climate change legislation would disrupt the flow of funding to terrorist groups like Al-Qaeda. Tie this into something that's real for a minute.
Again, what's real is the fact that we're sending $1 billion every day overseas. What's real is the fact that it's going to governments that don't have our best interests in mind. What's real is the fact that we're funding both sides of the conflict. What's real is that our sons and daughters that we in the military are charged to protect are being shot at by weapons that we are paying for. That's what's real about the national security implications.
John?
I'd say what's real about this is that on December 7th, 2007, I buried Captain Ben Tiffner, one of my West Point classmates, a fellow West Virginian, and I laid him into the ground in Arlington National Cemetery. He was killed by an advanced IED that was likely designed, built, and provided by the Iranians. 3 months later, I buried Captain Torrey Mallard, another friend of mine from West Point, a classmate and a team member. I buried him at West Point, again, killed by an advanced roadside bomb that was designed, funded, and provided by the Iranians. We can't afford to continue to send them $100 million a day through our oil demand. It's not fair to the men and women that we ask to go serve our nation overseas, and it is not fair to the 20% of Americans who are dependent upon veterans for their livelihoods. This is an issue that affects all of us. Think about your cousin, think about your son or daughter or your brother or sister who is a member and wears the uniform. Think about your friend who grew up, who you know is serving overseas today. This affects all of us.
So, Senator Kerry, to this point, and to this legislation, and to this question, is there something in this bill that would directly impede that flow of cash? Is there something in this bill, to John Thornton's question, that would impede the flow of money to terrorist groups like Al-Qaeda?
Yes. Ours is the first bill to ever actually reduce American OPEC dependency. And we reduce it not by 1%, we reduce it in 10 years by 40%. That's a beginning. And that's the way you're going to begin to move on. In addition,